Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so very excited for today's episode and today's guest, because if you use social media at all, then I am convinced that you have seen today's guest's company and product, because not only is it innovative, but it seems like he is incredible at drumming up some excitement and buzz, because obviously it's a really different product that people swear by who are using it. So I'm really excited for you to hear about the origin story there, how it's impacting the market, how it's changing something that we all do at least twice a day, I hope. And Dr. Kenny, today's guest, hopes even more than I do. So let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Dr. Kenny Brown. Dr. Kenny is an oral and maxillofacial surgeon and the co-founder and CEO of Feno, which is an oral health technology company aiming to bridge the gap between oral health and overall health. Dr. Brown received his undergraduate education from Stanford University, where he pursued noteworthy research in regenerative medicine. He received his dental education from Texas A&M, where he was an active member of the Technology Transfer Committee, facilitating the transition of innovations from the lab to the commercial market. And that is such a perfect segue for all the work that he's doing. I actually don't even really want to tell you about it, because I'm excited to hear it firsthand from him. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Dr. Kenny Brown. All right, Kenny, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Heck yes, I've been very excited for quite some time since you agreed to come on the show, because Dr. Kenny, I see your product pop up everywhere on TikTok and beyond. So you got to take us beyond the bio. Obviously, a lot of things led up to you launching this company and creating this product. So who's Dr. Kenny? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate to be in this position and very grateful, and really feel like it's a calling for me. Really like that I feel it comes from God, quite frankly. And so it's a part of who I am. You know, as a clinician, it's important that we take care of our patients and we get the opportunity to do so, like, you know, on a one-on-one basis. But for me, the real itch came and I couldn't shake it. I just constantly thinking about, okay, well, how do I treat 100 patients at a time, 1,000 patients at a time, 1,000,000 patients at a time? So really scaling that ability to care well for people has always been like a driving factor for me.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because hearing you talk as a clinician is so fascinating to me, because I know that that's very much only part of what you do. You are very much a fellow entrepreneur. And when I think about entrepreneurship, we always talk about finding gaps in the marketplace and looking for those opportunities. Well, Kenny, you've jumped into an industry that is very old, much longer than I can imagine, of people brushing their teeth, and you spotted an opportunity. Talk to us about those building blocks that led you to Feno.
Yeah, and really it starts with the problem, right? That's what all these things start with. And as an oral surgeon, I see at the end of the life of a tooth, right? Or more importantly, I see when a tooth issue becomes a life-threatening issue. And for me, that was like an awakening experience. And it's like, hey, the fact that someone's in a hospital and have their life threatened because of a tooth seems ridiculous to me, especially when it's preventable. So it really went back to going back to the building blocks and being like, well, why is this happening? Well, people just weren't brushing their teeth appropriately or correctly. And so we really try to break down the issues with that. And that came down with like time, technique, access, and awareness. And really that's how Feno was born. It was out of those problems.
Yeah, so introduce listeners to it. Obviously, I've seen it, and I'm sure once you start talking about it, probably a lot of listeners will realize, wait, I do see that on my social media newsfeed. I do scroll past that. So introduce us to what Feno does, what your flagship product looks like. I'm so excited for listeners to connect those dots that they've inevitably seen already.
Yeah, so Feno is a revolutionary oral care platform. And our flagship product, we built the world's first connected smart brush. It's a full mouth smart brush that brushes all of your teeth and your gum line in just 20 seconds. We have a distinct U-shaped form that you might have seen online that brushes all your teeth at the same time. The cool thing is that the technique is actually built into the brush, so it requires less cooperation from you and dramatically less time because we're addressing everything at once.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about that, obviously you're uniquely positioned because of your background as a clinician, as a doctor yourself. And so I'm curious though, the medical industry is sometimes touted as one that isn't necessarily open to innovations because there are a lot of things that are set in stone. For example, the way that we've been repairing ACLs is the way that we've been doing it. And there are some improvements along the way, but you've gone the radical route. This is radically different than a traditional toothbrush. What's the reaction been like inside of your industry?
Yeah, I think people were very skeptical, right? And they were skeptical because this has been tried before, right? Where people have tried to do a full mouth brush, but they've taken a lot of shortcuts and haven't really had the clinical foundation as the building blocks for how to build the product. And not only that, they stopped short, right? We believe that fundamentally they stop short by just addressing the brushing the teeth, which is why we have it's a connected device so that it addresses tracking what's going on in your mouth, right? We have a scanner on the device that'll scan your mouth, give you alerts, give you insights in what's happening in your mouth and how that's connected to your overall health. So imagine, you're brushing your teeth, you take a scan and you say, oh, hey, Brian, you got some inflammation over here. We need to address it with this or that, or pay attention when you're brushing. So really being thoughtful about what is the problem and how do we solve that? And I think after we talk about like the origin story, what we're doing and where we're going, clinicians seem to be way more excited than at the first jump when they just say, oh, 20 seconds, you can't be done, right? But now that they kind of hear the story unfold and how we actually built this and they understand the rigor, the clinical rigor that we went through this, they become excited.
Yeah, I love the way that you articulate that because I feel like, and I'm especially cognizant of this being the host of a business podcast, is that when listeners tune into any podcast, it always seems like they're getting that finished product. And of course, when they look at your marketing, your branding, your product itself, everything is very polished. But of course, you just alluded to some of the background information that goes into reaching what looks like a finished process. The clinical rigor, that's just part of it. I'm sure you went through so many different innovations and prototypes. Walk us through those building blocks because what we see today, obviously, everything that got you there.
Yeah, it's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. I mean, a lot of work has gone into this. This device is, somewhat over 5 years old, and what we're seeing today is just the production version that we're happy to share, and it'll continue to get better, right? It's still a first generation product. We still see little things here or there that we want to improve, and we'll continue to improve those. What's most important that people resonate with our message. Where are we coming from? Who are we? What's our identity? What does Feno stand for? And where are we going with that? But going back to your question, as far as like what we had to do to get here. So we actually were fortunate enough to leverage AI in our design process. So we use a generative algorithm to help us design that brush, right? Because it has to fit you. It has to fit me, and it has to fit, our loved ones. And we all might have different size or shapes of mouth. And so that's been really difficult in the manufacturing world prior to AI, to the point where that brush head that you see, we designed it over 100,000 iterations on that. Over 100,000 iterations before we came up with the design that you see today. So what we were able to do is put it through the computer, have certain parameters, have it reach a certain threshold, a certain score, if you will, right? And then print it, test it, do our plaque testing and our clinical testing, and then iterate, right? But being able to do that using, leveraging AI and leveraging basically just tech, we were able to do over 100,000 iterations to get it right.
That's incredible. I love that background story. And obviously you are a fellow lover of technology from your academic days, obviously through to your entrepreneurial career. But it makes me want to go deeper into something. I can't let it slide, Kenny, is that you're not the typical clinician because you're not solely focused on the solution, on the product that you're bringing to the market. But you very clearly called out is that Feno as a brand, you stand for something. You personally, as well as your team, as well as the company in and of itself, the brand that you've built. You've got to talk to us about that because I feel like there's so many nuggets of knowledge within there that go beyond just a product, that you're building something that is super sustainable. I'd love to hear that part of your brain.
Yeah, I think the story, and you probably hear this all the time, it's really the story that makes, that really drives everyone. It's the mission that drives, because there's going to be pitfalls. There's a lot of pitfalls, right? There's a lot of things that go right, and there's a lot of things that go wrong, maybe more things that go wrong than go right. But really, it's the story, it's the why that will resonate with people, whether it be recruiting for hiring, whether it be clinicians, skeptical clinicians, customers who may be, extremely happy customers or not so happy customers, right? Investors and the general marketplace, right? They're really resonating with that story, that why they feel like people want to be a part of that vision, and moving forward. And I think that's the critical part. If you can get ultra clear on your why and what you're doing it for, I think that really allows you to withstand a lot of the pain of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure. Because pain it's around every corner. It's not something that we ever get over. I love the fact that you called that out. We're going to, for sure, towards the end of today's conversation, switch gears and talk about you as the entrepreneur. But before we get there, from a business perspective, I'm always so curious about the catalyst in decision making. I always think about why we buy things. And a lot of it happens from pain points. When people are laid off, for example, from their professional career, then they often seek out life coaching or executive coaching or whatever it may be to upskill. And as a consumer, I will transparently tell you here on the air, Dr. Kenny, is that when I go to the grocery store to buy dental products, everything says like #1 dental recommended. And we all see all of these claims, and dentists are catalysts for a lot of reasons why we as consumers buy things. But what's the catalyst that you found for Feno, and especially for your smart brush? What is the catalyst for people saying, you know what, I saw this on social media or I heard about it on a podcast, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to change the way that I treat my oral hygiene. What's that spark for them usually?
Yeah, that's it. And the cool thing is that we see a lot of people coming into Feno and the Feno ecosystem through different angles. One, very obviously, convenience. 20 seconds is a lot shorter than 2 minutes. So that is one thing that people are often attracted to. But in general, it's that the oral health is connected to your overall health, and that we need to do a better job. And there's a little bit of like self-admission there, like, maybe I'm not doing the greatest job with taking care of my teeth, or like, I'm not brushing all the times that I should. It would be nice to have a better tool for that. And that's really where we're speaking to people. And once they actually try it, they're like, oh, blown away, like, oh my gosh, this is so much better, right? I just had no idea. And then they're running their tongue across their teeth and like, oh, even more so. So that's really, the catalyst. And then we have some people, in addition to that, right, from the oral health that connect to overall health, is that, oh, okay, well, how do I pay attention to what's going on? Because I don't really know too much. Maybe I go to the dentist, maybe I go every once every 2 years, maybe I go every 5 years, maybe I go every 6 months. But how do I pay attention to this, and how can I do that the easiest way possible? And that's through our Feno Plus program, right? Where we have that scanner, gives you those insights, and allows you to track your health, right? Just like we track our steps, we track our sleep, we track our food for some people, we track all kinds of things. So why not track something that's so essential to our overall body?
Yeah, it's really cool hearing you talk about these things in real time, because for any of our businesses, awareness is one of the most basic steps in marketing. And I'm not sure if you've heard about this story, but many soccer fans worldwide, like myself, they actually have heard about dental health leading to overall health from, it was probably a decade ago, that the French national team, they were preparing for the World Cup. A lot of their players had headaches, and they couldn't figure out where these headaches were coming from. It was the team dentist that said, hold on, a lot of you guys have some teeth problems, and that of course leads to other things. Talk to us about that awareness level, because as much as you and I can talk about this on the air, and there's real life examples like the French national team before a World Cup, but I don't think we talk about this often enough. And it's so clear to me, looking at your business and your personal social media, that you just spread awareness as well. This isn't just about pushing a product. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, you're right. It's exactly right. It's about pushing a mission, right? And becoming advocates for what oral health means to the rest of our body. So absolutely. So a lot of the content that you will see coming from myself, coming from the company, are educational first, right? It's more just like, hey, this is a real thing. We are now starting to see more and more as we become more health conscious, and wellness becomes more of a science as opposed to, some fluff. We're starting to see people be more proactive about learning what's happening in their bodies and how they could avoid these things, where traditionally we Western medicine is a lot of sick care, right? Not really preventative care. We intervene after it's gone wrong, maybe when it's too late. And so by developing a product and a mission and a company that's around before it becomes too late, is a real key driver for myself. And that's actually how we should be delivering care. Right. So we've really taken it upon ourselves to take that on. But you're exactly right. I mean, and awareness is one of the key pillars, right, of the problems that we're solving with, tracking what's going on in your mouth. So everything you see from us will be about awareness. I think this is a tide drives all boats. I think that's how you say it. But, we're looking to partner with the dental industry. We're looking to elevate dentists so that they are on the same platform when it comes to healthcare as a general doctor. It's not a silo thing. This is not off to the side. It's not optional. It's just, this is like, hey, we need to think about how our mouth is connected to our body. And it's not just about white, straight teeth. White, straight teeth are great, but it's about so much more. And we need to make sure that people know that and are aware of that. And we're starting to see rumblings of this. And I believe the tsunami is coming.
Yeah, I love the way you phrase that. Especially, I'm gonna give you bonus points today, Kenny. Listeners know one of our founding mottos is "A rising tide lifts all boats," and you so succinctly nailed it at the exact time that it's relevant. I love the way you looped that in. But I do want to ask you about that market penetration, because you talk about the tsunami coming, and that gets me excited, Kenny. Because some might argue that you've already achieved that very hard to do tsunami of appearing in so many different places, whether it's tech magazines or whether it's in publications about oral health or overall health. You have your hands involved in all of those different mediums and platforms, and obviously you have a team who helps to support making all of these things happen. But talk to us about that market penetration, because you guys have been so successful at getting it out there, and that's a lesson in marketing everyone can learn from.
Yeah, it's so much of it is a snowball, right? It's not only one thing. It's not just your PR. It's not you showing up in one article or just your social media posts. It really is a conglomerate of all of them, which actually is making marketing harder in some aspects, is because you want to invest dollars or time in a certain channel, and you may not know what your ROI is on that specific channel, because they may have seen an ad here and then saw a post there and then saw an article there. And then where do you attribute that, right? So it really is about a general movement. I think when we think about our marketing strategy and what we're doing here, we talk about a movement. We want to start a movement where people are talking about this, where people are feeling this. We want to create an emotion around this, because that's what drives people to take action, right? And to make changes in their life. And we believe for the better, right? Whether it be with Feno or without Feno. So at the end of the day, it's about starting a movement. And I think the other thing is that, making a conscious decision to go direct to consumer, right? And that's how we are really spreading the importance about what oral health means to the rest of our body and just in general. And I think that's just a very intentional act that we've made, and it's not easy. It is not easy at all, but we think that movement is so important for longevity in the market, for longevity of the company, and actually creating a bigger slice of the pie when it comes to just a general oral wellness and healthcare.
Yeah, Kenny, it's such a treat being able to talk to you here today, because it's so clear to me that you have equal love, it seems, for the dental practice and in the field of overall dental health and overall health, as well as technology, as well as also business. That's why I'm so appreciative to have you here on an entrepreneurial podcast, because you think about all of these important things that true business owners think about, because you are one yourself. And along those lines, I think about kind of the market objections of a lot of people who say, Dr. Kenny, my toothbrush cost me $3 and I throw it out after a month, Yeah. What sort of, I guess, sales objections or marketing pathways and nurturing pathways have you built into Feno, so that when people need to replace the product, when people need to maintain it or make sure that it stays clean? I've been turned on to so many TikTok videos that are like, your toothbrush is probably nasty, here's how you keep it clean. Talk to us about some of those real life consumer thoughts that you build into the delivery of your product.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think about price first, right? And they're just, they're shocked by a price. I think we have to anchor it in value. What does this mean for you? What is this going to do for you? How is it going to save you money? What's the trade-off there? So I think not talking so much dollars and cents, strictly, but more talking about value. And I think those are two very distinct ways to think about maybe the monetary trade that you have here. But it's really anchoring in what is the value that this brings to you, and trying to be ultra clear about that value and how it's going to improve and elevate, whether your life, right? The other thing that I think about when we think about like any just objections or is this skepticism. Like, does this really work? Right? Is this real? Like, how can you tell me it's 20 seconds? Well, that's where we go to the science, right? So really just making sure that we, are clinically efficacious, make sure that we're going to do the clinical trials in-house. We're doing third-party clinical trials currently. We're partnering with some of the largest organized dental organizations just for, to make sure that you understand that, hey, like dentists are looking at this too. This is not a toy. It's not just drop shipped to your home. And really, again, going back to that value, this is what this means for you. And so making sure that is a through line throughout our messaging, through the product once you receive it, and just being humble enough to listen. I think that's the other thing. It's just like, because the feedback that you get is going to tell you where you need to go, whether that be positive or negative. It's gonna help shape where you need to go. And I believe as a provider, to deliver great care, you need to meet the patient or meet the customer where they're at. Right? If you have a drug that's works 100% of the time, but you take it 4 times a day, and nobody takes it because you take 4 times a day, it's not very effective. Versus if you had a drug that was 50% effective, but everybody took it, in general, you're going to get way better outcomes with the one that was 50% efficacious. Right? So meet the people where they're at, make it easy, and then you can graduate them along the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I'm going to switch gears, Kenny, because hearing you talk about making things easy, I want to talk about making things hard, because in my family, so my younger sister, she's a veterinarian. And so just like her, I know that you don't do small things. You have gone so deep into your academic career, your professional career, and of course, your entrepreneurial venture as well. And so I know how hard that is, because in our family, the running joke was at least once a month, Christina would send a text in the family group chat saying, it's hard. I quit. Like, why did I choose this career path? I would imagine through dental school, you had so many of those moments as well. And now as an entrepreneur, you have so many of those moments as well. Talk to us about those hard times, because to me, people who are building incredible solutions like what you've brought to the marketplace, it's through persistence. It's through those hurdles. I'd love to hear some of those hurdles for people who are hearing you and going, gosh, Dr. Kenny, you've got the credentials, you've got all the science backing you, you've got a cool product. It must be easy, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, shout out to all the vets out there. That's ridiculously hard. Thinking that you have to learn the anatomy for all different types of species. Yeah, just phenomenal. But yeah, look, every year I went to dental school. It was like every year I'm like, is this where I should be? I feel like it's like, maybe not every year, it's like every semester, right? It's like, is this what I should be doing? Does this make sense? You start asking yourself those questions very consistently. And it's because, it's hard. It seems insurmountable. And I think for me, what drove me was a lot of it was faith. But I think there's this weird balance between patience and force or grit. And it's like, hey, the time will come, but keep working. The time will come, but keep pushing. It's a really delicate balance, and it's quite difficult to do. So hearing other people's stories for me was very helpful, especially ones that are going to tell you the truth. Like, hey, it took us 5 years and 100,000 times to get this brush right. Right? It took us millions of dollars to get this brush right. It took 12 years to become a surgeon, right? To be able to pull a tooth on someone in the community. It took, it really kind of like sets that perspective as far as like how deep and wide it really takes to get to that end goal. And I don't even feel like we're there yet. We're getting there, but by no means should you let those temporary things deter you from the long-term goal, right? And I think trying to always keep that perspective is that this also shall pass. This is temporary. The goal is not, right? This is temporary. The goal is not. And just really keeping that frame of mind.
Yes, I love that perspective, and I'm going to use that. I promised that we would also talk about Dr. Kenny, the entrepreneur, and I want to turn the spotlight onto you personally because I'm so fascinated by incredible visionaries and innovators like yourself. What's your executive time look like? When you sit down, obviously you have these huge dreams and ambitions, and you talked about scale really early on in our conversation today, that sure, you could continue being a surgeon and operate on 100 patients, every week or month. I don't know what that workload looks like, but you could operate on so many, but obviously you want to positively impact the health of millions, or dare I say billions of people worldwide. So when you sit down, you do have to balance. It's that very delicate balance that you alluded to of what can I do now versus what's that direction that I want to move in the future. How do you shake things out? What questions do you ask yourself? What do you look at from the executive leadership perspective? I'd love to really get inside your mind there.
Yeah, I think that as my role for Feno is more vision, right? That's the role that I serve with the company, and I think that vision, and this is always something I wanted to do, right? When I was thinking about the scale and the tech transfer off, like that's sort of like where I saw myself, and I think one of the most important things is time. And I'm talking about micro time, meaning like on the day-to-day basis, not like months or years. And I think it's not filling your schedule up so much that you have time to think. You have time to ponder and really ask yourself questions. It may be difficult to find that time, but you can always get more busy. One of the things I very intentionally did when coming out of residency was I did not take a full-time job. Right. I think this is a big temptation. Like, okay, great. I'm graduating to make some money. Like, finally, right. And I got to pay back these loans. But it's like, no. I need to give myself a day or two of not the weekend, but just to think about where am I going with this whole thing and how is it going to work. And I think that that really has allowed me to develop that muscle as far as like, what does this mean? Why? Always asking yourself that why, go deeper. And I think that is critical because if you're so busy, you don't have time to think. And then by the time you have any time, you're just exhausted. So really carving out time to think and just ponder and become inspired, right? And sometimes that could be reading, it could be prayer, it could be talking to chat, right? It's just got to go through a thought process. But it's important to give yourself time in the micro sense to think about what's next and where is it all going.
Yeah, I love the way you talk about time. It really reminds me of one of my good friends who, just like you, is out in LA, and he was working on a book about country musicians and their success trajectories, because country stars seemingly pop out of nowhere, and what he realized was they all seem to come from the same county in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. And so when he flew out there, he was interviewing some of these country stars, and he said, what is it about this place? Like, why are so many coming from this exact place? And one of the country stars that he talked to, I always forget the name, I don't know any country stars, but the guy said to my friend, he said, because we've got space out here, space to think, space to dream, space to explore, space to do all of that. And whether you call it time or space, it sounds like you really step into that, Kenny, and that's part of your superpower. So I love the intentionality behind all of that. And I'm going to put you on the spot one last time in today's conversation. Okay. We could probably go for days, but I always love asking this broad question because it's a treat for me because I don't even know what direction you're going to take it in. And that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs from all different stages of their own business growth journey and personal growth journeys as well. And also knowing that you're one of us as a fellow entrepreneur. Right. What's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with?
I mean, I'll actually end it on the time factor, right? Give yourself time and space to think, to dream, and because and I say use that time first to get solid on your why, and that why might change over the course of time. But the more solid you can get on that why, that allows you to stay in the game long enough to win, right? It's never about losses. It's about staying in the game long enough to win and have that persistence and have that grit, because you will need that. You will need that optimism, that why to drive you through any and everything. Whether you're starting your own company or you are thinking about starting a company or you're basically an entrepreneur inside of a large organization, right? With a project or with a new initiative, or you are starting a family, right? You always need to have that why, because it's not easy. It's just not easy. Life is just not easy. And we need those things to kind of drive us and move us forward, because on the other side of that uncomfortable is like really where the gold is.
Yes, so well said. Kenny, I am so appreciative of the way you show up, not only in creating innovative products that move society forward with our health, but I also really love and appreciate the way that you show up for others in service, whether it's through the work that you do or through conversations like these, where you so generously share your thoughts and your ideas and your mindset and your growth as well, personally and professionally. So you definitely owe our listeners some links, though, because I know that they're going to be excited. Hearing you and I talk about it is one thing, but seeing it, buying it, trying it for themselves, that's a whole nother thing. So tease a little bit about that smart brush and where the heck listeners can find it on the internet.
Yes, you can find it at feno.co, Feno.co. Feno.co. That's where you can find it online. And then, our handles, you could just search Feno or Kenny Brown DDS if you want to learn more and just kind of see our strategy, even from a strategical standpoint. What are we posting? How often are we posting? What sort of approach are we taking when we are posting? What are we experimenting with, right? Because it's always about testing. You test and learn, by all means. But you actively follow us, so you just learn even for how you might test and learn in your own journey.
Yes, I so appreciate you dropping those links. And listeners, I don't usually say this, but our pre-production team, when we first came across Dr. Kenny and all the great things that him and his team are putting into the world, just search Feno on social media. You're going to find thousands of very happy customers from them using the product. So if you're thinking, how the heck does a totally different type of toothbrush work? Go see for yourself. You can see it on YouTube. You can find it on TikTok, on Instagram. So many people are using it and absolutely loving it. And you've heard from the founder here today. So you see why it's such a deeply rooted in service and results product that has come to the market. So Dr. Kenny, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for the work that you're doing as well.